Hi everybody, it's me. This is an unscripted video. This isn't a planned video. There is another video that I'm working on that was gonna be the next thing uploaded on the channel, but this is a quick impromptu thing because I just need to get it out of my system. It's not scripted, it's not well put together or formulated or anything. This is just my pure, minute one thoughts on something that I just have to talk about. Hopefully it won't bother people that I uploaded something like this. Anyway, we need to talk about Brand New Animal, which is the new anime produced by Studio Trigger that just dropped on Netflix for US viewers recently. And we need to talk specifically about a certain thing that it does that I think it does poorly. Now, I want to state for the record, up front, first and foremost, I don't hate BNA. I don't think it's even that bad of a show, really. I think there's a lot to like here. The animation is absolutely fucking gorgeous. The music is really good. The OP and ED are both bangers. There's some cute lesbian subtext, and I like that. And also, the main girl is just really great. She's a really spontaneous, kind of cheery main character, and she has the voice actress of Emma from Promised Neverland, which I love Emma, so I'm already biased. So that being said, don't immediately assume that I'm just ragging on this anime just because I say I have a big problem with it, because I do have a big problem with it, but that doesn't mean that I hate it, or at least hate all of it. Also, if you hear any shuffling or stuff in the background, that's probably the cat, so don't worry about that. Anyway, okay, so Brand New Animal. I guess we should start by talking about what exactly the series is about, what's going on, so I can contextualize exactly what I'm going to be talking about here. So Brand New Animal is a story about animal people. Now, when I say animal people, I don't mean furries as in Zootopia furries. I mean people that can kind of they can turn into animals, basically. They're called Beastmen. It's kind of like the Gurren Lagann term, actually, except I don't think it's really that much like Gurren Lagann in that sense. But anyway, point is, they're humanoid-like people that can also turn into an animal form. And it's not a feral form, it's an anthro form, for the most part. There are exceptions to this rule, but it doesn't really matter for our purposes. Let's just talk about what's relevant here. Anyway, the story focuses on the main character, Michiru, who basically, she was a human girl. She was just a regular human living in human society. Then one day, she mysteriously gets, something happens to her that turns her into a beast man. And that becomes relevant later as well, of course, because Trigger being Trigger, they do plot twisty stuff all the time. But what's important at the beginning is just that, she was human once, now she's not. So she's driven out of human society because humans are super racist against beastmen. Yep, that's what the show was gonna do. I really hoped in my heart of hearts when we first saw stuff about this show that it wasn't gonna do the whole furry racism thing again like Zootopia did and like Beastars did, because I understand the temptation, but there are a lot of ways to fuck it up, and a lot of them do all the time, and I was hoping this one would be different. I was really hoping, but they really screwed the pooch in a very specific, that's not a pun, screwed the pooch in a very specific way. Again, we'll be getting to it. Anyway, so most of the show kind of just revolves around Michiru living in this city of animal people and trying to, navigate the new way of life that she's kind of been thrust into that she didn't know anything about before. And she's had her assumptions, about Beastman society as a human that has never interacted with them before. But, of course, like any fish out of water story, she, comes to know the people in the society, and she actually appreciates them a lot, and she understands, to a certain extent, what kind of prejudices they've been facing and that kind of thing. And then she learns to see things from their perspective, because she's basically, sort of become one of them in a way, even though there is still a wealth of difference between their experiences. So all of that is generally pretty fine. For the most part, it is like completely inoffensive. There are like a couple of things here and there that you're like, maybe you could have said that better, but you know, it's really not bad. Then we start getting towards the end of the show. Now, throughout the show, there are a lot of plot elements being sort of set as, you know, sort of mounting bits of intrigue here and there. There's like some stuff going on with the shady pharmaceutical company. The guy that you expect to be the villain within like the first 5 minutes of the show is the villain, by the way. Don't worry, Trigger hasn't bucked tradition on that one. But yeah, so there's shady pharmaceutical company. There's like a mayor who at first you might think that she's like bad, but you don't know for sure. There's, you know, there's various different things going into it here. Obviously, there's like the human racism against Beastmen. And honestly, can I just say first, before I give it a tongue lashing in a little bit, I want to at least compliment it for something about the race allegory that I think it did okay, and was really what gave me hope in the first place, which is why I got so disappointed later, is that I thought that they had kind of cleverly avoided the trapping of a lot of other furry racism metaphor stories, like, again, Zootopia and Beastars. Well, Beastars to a less extent. I think Beastars did it less than Zootopia, but it was especially Zootopia. Where in Zootopia, it's just animal people, and the way they were like, you know, oh, it's predators and prey animals, and that was the metaphor for racism. Where, you know, prey animals were racist against predator animals. The problem with Zootopia, as a lot of people have pointed out over time, is that in real life, there is no legitimate excuse for racism. There is no logical defense of it. It is an indefensible act. There's nothing logical about it. It's purely motivated by bigotry and, like, emotion. Whereas prey animals being scared of predator animals is not like racism at all, because they have a legitimate reason to be scared of them. So the metaphor in Zootopia doesn't work because of that. Now, that being said, I know there are a lot of people that still like Zootopia and like a lot of things about Zootopia, and I'm the same way. You know, I kind of like a lot of little things about Zootopia too, but it is important to acknowledge, despite the fact that there are things to like about it, that it is not perfect, and it does kind of come across a little bit uncomfortably in some ways, because it tried and failed so spectacularly at the one specifically sensitive topic it was trying to discuss. So that being said, I thought the B&A was kind of cleverly avoiding that route by going the way of, it's not the animal people who are racist against each other, it's humans are still a thing, and the beast people are also a thing, and the humans are racist against the beast people. So it's really just, you know, another stand-in race thing, but because they make the racist half the humans, it still at least manages to avoid feeling, like, tone-deaf in that specific regard. Now, that being said, there's a lot of stuff building up over the course of the show. We're not going to go into all of it. This is probably going to be a pretty short video, to be completely honest. At least I hope it is. But basically, what you need to know is that around episode 9, 10... This is a 12-episode show, by the way. I don't know if they're planning to do another season. It felt like they might, but also it was pretty comprehensively wrapped up, so I don't know if they will. Either way, it's pretty late into the show. By this point, you know, you've got the pharmaceutical company, you've got this church that's moved in with, like, this cult that seems to want to give hope to the people by lying to them about this ancient god, and they're like, oh, yeah, we have the ancient god, she's right here, but then, like, there's also a real one, and it's revealed that this one is a fake one, but they're like, but what's the harm, you know, we're just giving people hope, and, you know, there's a lot going on. So, that being said, at sort of the 11th hour, basically, they reveal part of the evil villain plan. And well, let's just talk about that first part to begin with. They are showing signs that, like, different beastmen in the city are just going absolutely fucking apeshit, like, full roid mode. like big old fucking arms and veins and stuff, and just beating the shit out of each other. Now, obviously something's going on with that, so the main characters are investigating. Turns out that this is not something that is being caused by anyone, but rather is an inherent biological phenomenon that happens to beast people when they undergo the stress of being in a city with a bunch of different types of beast people. I don't think I need to explain why this is pretty tone deaf. But if I do need to explain, it's basically the same line of logic that people use to decry the dangers of multiculturalism and those darn immigrants. And I'm not saying that was Trigger's intention. I don't know if it was their intention. I think it would be a little bit naive to not at least examine the possibility of that being their intention, but I'm not necessarily saying with 100% certainty that that was their goal. They could have just been stupid, and I'm inclined to believe that they just were. But that being said, optically, not a great development. That being said, there was still time left, so I was hoping by the end they would pull it back somehow. I was already kind of suspicious about the pharmaceutical company guy anyway, and he hadn't really dropped his mask entirely quite yet, so I knew that there was at least something that he wasn't telling the audience yet, and there was still room for more Trigger reveals to happen. So I, knowing Trigger shows, kind of figured that this might even be a disguise for like another plot twist, where it turns out that, hey, you know, the gene talk was all bullshit. We just wanted to wipe out the animal people. That's what I thought was going to kind of happen. The bad thing is that I was wrong. That was not what ended up happening. What really ended up happening was that the fake god that they had raised up through the cults that was in collaboration with the pharmaceutical company, all this government corruption bullshit, basically what they end up like throwing a big concert to soothe the animal people right before we announce that we have these vaccines for this terrible problem that turns them into horrendous violent demons. We'll give it to them and it'll be fine, and you just need to sedate them so that they'll be okay with it, you know. And the vaccine, by the way, that they're planning to give all of the animal people to not make them feral, has the side effect of turning them permanently into humans, so they can't ever transform out of their human form, which, if you look up the fucking definitions of genocide, is literally what genocide is. Genocide doesn't even necessarily have to be killing people. I hope people realize that. It also means just ethnically, like, fucking destroying any trace of their culture and shit. So, that's literally what it is. Now, granted, that is the villain's plan. So I'm not saying that that's part of what the hero agenda is in the show, but I just need you to know that because it's important. That is what the villain is planning to do. He's planning to make everyone fucking, like, human and erase all of their animal genes. Now, that being said, he's using the fake half-human god that they propped up through the fakey culty church thing to hold a concert to rally all the people, and she's been tricked because she just kind of wants to be in the spotlight. Like, she just believes everything that they say, even though they're totally full of shit. And they're basically telling her, like, hey, throw this huge concert. And why are you running into the bathtub? Sorry. Where was I? But yeah, so basically they just tell her, you know, run your concert, do your thing, make the people happy, and then at the end of your performance, tell everybody that you're a human, and also about the vaccine shit. Their logic is, oh, well, you know, once everything's been cleared up with the whole danger of the disease thing, once you tell them that you're actually human and not really their god and you've been lying to them for a long time, that'll actually make them a little bit calmer about the situation. Which is, very stupid. I'm not really sure how she fell for that, unless she just truly is so dumb that she wasn't fucking paying attention. I mean, Thankfully, she realizes that that's not true later, but anyway, point being, I was starting to see the writing on the wall here. When I started seeing the direction this was going with, they're like, oh, they're tricking her into inciting panic within the crowd by telling her that it will actually make them happy, and she wants approval from people, so she'll do it. And the main character is looking kind of suspicious about this. I knew in my heart right then and there that my hope that there was not going to actually be a violence gene incited by multiculturalism in the animal people was actually gonna be real and not fake. And it was real and not fake. They have the concert, they out her as a human, everybody panics, and then they all turn into roided up rage machines, and the city is like thrown into fucking chaos. And the whole end of the show is focused on the heroes saving the city and its people from themselves. Because that's definitely what we needed right now, isn't it? Okay. So, that being said, I don't think it necessarily fails as hard on this front as Beastars did. I feel like, at the very least, by the very end, they pull back just slightly enough not to make it deeply fucking awful. But I can't say that it actually made it great, because I would be lying if I said that. The reason that I am predisposed to think that Trigger was just being stupid about this and not intentionally antagonistic. And trust me, this is a slim hope. If I was proved to be wrong in some other way, I wouldn't actually be that surprised, and I would not go to bat for them over it. I think that they fucky-wuckied this up. But, that being said, the end of the show doesn't do the Beastars thing of like, maybe society should be segregated. What do you think about that? It doesn't do that. It at least avoids that much. It says, hey, you know, all of that really fucked up shit happened, but I think it's still worth it to try to understand each other and come to a better solution instead of just shutting each other out and, you know, living isolative lives. And the city is opened up to human immigration, and, you know, more people are talking, and everybody gets a cool vaccine that doesn't turn them into a human permanently and actually cures their violence stuff. Well, I say cures, but I mean, like, you know, it turns them back into into animal people, is what I'm saying, and it doesn't remove their animal side. It calms them down, basically, and they're, you know, immune and shit. But that being said, you know, I was at least, you know, a little bit relieved by the fact that they were like, okay, well, now we're just going to continue trying to open up to people and understand them, even if it's hard sometimes. And, you know, I at least appreciate that much, but too little too late, you know what I mean? So that being said, lastly, I want to talk about why I find this so incredibly frustrating, despite the obvious being that it's just a shitty piece of shit writing choice. And that's that I feel like it's so easy to fix this, because there are not a whole lot of moving parts. Like, as complicated as the show can make itself seem by obscuring information a lot of the time and like cutting between a bunch of perspectives and stuff, it's not actually that complicated of a plan. At its core, it's actually quite easy to understand in terms of the actual writing. So my point being is that they could have reverse coursed on this like a long fucking time ago. I'm surprised that this got past anybody, and that's what worries me. Because here, I will come up with a better way to introduce this plot element into the story in like 5 seconds. And by the way, can I just say beforehand that I feel like the reason they did, and I wanna give Studio Trigger some faith here for just a second, because I do love them, and they do shit badly sometimes, but I want to at least believe that they're earnest for now. And my suspicion is that basically they wanted a huge, cool, like, city on fire type of final episode arc thing going on. They wanted an excuse to have a big bombastic final fight with everything on the line, because that's what Trigger does. That's their whole thing. They are literally obsessed with bombastic final battles. It's like part of their fucking wheelhouse. So I wasn't going to be surprised that something like that was going on. But they needed a reason for something like that to be going on. Don't bite me. But they needed a reason for something like that to be going on. So how did they get there? Well, that leads me to believe that Trigger, being Trigger, does the thing that Trigger is best at, which is kind of just throwing ideas at the wall and not really paying attention to whether they work all that well or not. You know, I kind of admire that irreverent energy. There's a lot to like about Studio Trigger's approach to things in that sense, but sometimes it comes back to bite them in the ass, and this is one of those times, because I think that it was probably just some random idea that they threw out that they were like, oh, this could result in a big final battle if we just make everybody rampage and then the heroes have to save the day because they were tricked by the big bad evil man in the business suit, like they always are. And when I look at it that way, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see where this decision happened along the fucking writing process. But again, there are a lot of easy ways to fix this, and here's what mine would have been. Are you ready for it? It's very simple. Instead of everybody having a violence gene that can be activated by the big bad scary CEO man by using a clever trick, instead, maybe they should have just been being gradually tricked to inject some kind of foreign substance or fucking like vaccine or something. Maybe they could force people to like get, you know, some kind of vaccine. Well, I mean, you don't want to come across like an anti-vaxxer either, but you know what I mean. You could have come up with something where the people were being fooled to ingest some sort of chemical thing that turned them feral under extreme stress. And they still could have gotten stressed and have the thing be triggered during the concert where they're told that their god that they've been worshiping is actually a lie. Like, that could have still been the inciting incident. They could have still attached all of those other plot strings to it and like just made it like that. Like, everybody got roided up and, you know, now it's being activated on a wide scale. And now, because they are roided up and causing a rampage, well, now we have to go in and vaccinate them all and turn them into normal, decent humans, because there's just no coming back from that. It would be basically, instead of, yeah, so they do have a violence gene, but we incited it on purpose, so that makes it less bad that we wrote that. Instead, you could just be like, there is no violence gene, they're fucking lying about it, and they came up with this shit with drugs and lured all of the unsuspecting citizens into its gaping maw for the purpose of scapegoated ethnic cleansing. And that would still be a piece of shit, awful, racist motivation for an antagonist. And it would have been way fucking better than what they ended up doing. But because they had to fucking do that stupid bullshit, oh, there's a gene in animal people that makes them stressed and mad when they're around too many different animal people. Because they did that, it honestly nearly ruined the show for me. And it didn't. Granted, there are still a lot of things to like here, and like I said, at the 11th hour, they at least kind of pull back enough to where I didn't absolutely fucking hate it. And there are still a lot of things I like about it. Maybe my opinions will, you know, mellow out or even probably get harsher over time. I don't really know. My point is that I finished it like a couple of hours ago, or maybe not even a couple of hours ago, like an hour ago. And that's how I feel about it, is that it was so close to doing everything generally pretty fine. And it just took that chance and fucking squandered it. They had every opportunity to do this well, and they just didn't. So I am a little bit disappointed. So that being said, if you see promotional art or retweets or fan art about Brand New Animal, I'm not telling you to not watch the show. In fact, I think there's a lot to like about it. So maybe you should watch it. You know, support art that you enjoy. But on the extremely important caveat that you know that this one particular part of the show that is incredibly sensitive to some people and will definitely turn a lot of people off of it was a major issue. And it's just too big and too easily solvable for me to comfortably overlook. There are a lot of things that I can comfortably overlook if the rest of the show is really good. But kind of fumbling on a racial allegory and as a result kind of seeming supremacist-y was not one of those things that I could overlook. Am I saying that I hate Brand New Animal? No. Again, I've said it a million times, but there's a lot about this show to enjoy. But that certainly was not one of them. And if you're looking for a show to do a good race allegory, don't look here. It is honestly a lot better if you kinda just try your best to tune that part out. And considering that it's a major theme of the show, I don't actually know if that's very possible. So basically what I mean to say is only watch it if you can comfortably get past the fact that Trigger doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about when it comes to race issues and like racism and stuff, and they fumbled it. At least I want to think that they had good intentions here and they didn't mean it to come across so horribly. But on the other hand, I can't actually say for certain that that's true. So I would approach this one with at least some degree of caution, at the very, very least. And you know, I didn't want to have to say that because I love Studio Trigger. I love them to death. I love a lot of their work so much. And a lot of it has been really important and informative to me. And been there for me when I needed it most. But BNA is messy. And while there are a lot of things to praise about BNA, there are also a lot of things to criticize about it. And I think that just because we like a studio, or just because we like a lot of elements about a piece of work, doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to critically evaluate them on their failings. And this is a failing. It's a failing of this show that I could not ignore. So, I didn't. And that's why I made this. So, I hope that didn't come across as too impassioned and overzealous and all that. Again, I'm not saying I dislike the show. I know there are probably going to be people that whine at me for being like, oh, SJW or whatever in the fucking comment. You know, whatever. That's fine. You know, maybe look for a job after this or something. But that being said, I don't know. I don't know how to end this in a concise manner or a satisfactory manner. I didn't script it, so whatever. Anyway, before I go, let's read off these pledges of the Patreon tier that has credits, because I'm gonna be lazy right now. I'm gonna build a little bitchy lazy girl and not put text credits on the screen because I just want to render this out really quickly. So thank you to Dean Wise, Mordecai, Femi, Midnight Mixology, Cyberlink420, and Serena Midori for your pledges. Thank you very much. And just stop doing racism metaphors with animals, please. I know what you're trying to do, but it's just not gonna work that way. You need to find a better way to do it. Oh, and also stop doing race metaphors with, like, fucking white-looking people? Maybe stop doing that, too. It's not as predisposed to being messy as animal people, but it's still not great. I need to cut myself off before I go off on another entire rant. 7 out of 10. Not enough actual combating racism. Thank you much for watching my stupid fucking video. Bye.